Welcome back to a victory episode of Banditland Boulevard. Trevor Howard, Tony LaMonica, aka Boxhead98TL. For the fourth consecutive year, your Buffalo
Mhm.
Bandits have clinched a playoff spot. They're locked up after a huge 14-7 victory at home on Fan Appreciation Night against the Calgary Roughnecks. The Bandits have taken that giant leap or that giant step to reclaiming that title. Tony, how you feeling after a big 14-7 win?
Well, I didn't expect the blowout win that they had with 7 goals separating from them winning. But again, the magic number 14 again helps them win those games. And you know what? We've been talking about how Dane Smith has been hot with 5 goals and that. But I also mentioned that secondary was going to be huge this game. And boy, oh boy, did they step up when we really wanted to see them. And you know what, folks? When I say this honestly to your face, is that when everybody's on page, this team is dangerous to watch. So this is a great outcome, especially at Fan Appreciation Night and in front of a sold out 19K crowd. Good Lord, that was beautiful in the making.
The worst thing you want to do is get the whole Bandits team in a rhythm. And what did the Calgary
Mhm.
Roughnecks do in the first quarter after being down 4-0? They let the boys get into a rhythm. And it
Mhm.
started with a bang. First off, I think it has to be an NLL record, a penalty taken 9 seconds into a game in the first quarter.
Yeah.
But the first shot on Christian Del Bianco went right through the wickets from Chase Fraser to make a 1-0 lead. And I think after that point, they're like,
Mhm.
Chase probably ran over to the bench, or the bench had an idea of, yeah, the ball's going to bounce our way tonight. We're just going to keep shooting. We're going to keep scoring. That's exactly what they did. And Chase Fraser, I mean, before I get into any of the statistical stuff, you thought he had his goal of the year in Hamilton or up in Toronto. I thought that was going to be the goal of the year as well. But
Mhm.
if you watch the game in the entirety against the Roughnecks, Josh Burns, not only was it a behind the back finish by Chase Fraser, but a
Mhm.
behind the back pass from Josh Byrne led it
Yep.
into a behind the back shot that went top shelf. Christian Del Bianco didn't even see it. Chase Fraser, he also had a goal where he ran behind the net with one hand on
Yep.
the stick and just shot it with his opposite hand with one hand on the stick and it went top corner. Chase Fraser, this had to have been, as far as style points are concerned, the best game of his NLL career.
Yeah, Chase, like we've said, the secondary scoring where it mattered most. He's part of that keys to win the games. And you know what? Chase has been thinking about really contributing, and 4 goals alone proved only one thing: ESPN moments and victories for the team. And let me tell you that Chase has really stepped up when he needs to. After his injury, I don't know if you folks watched his post game interview, talking to the normal channels and stuff, but he says he's in the right mindset. He is in playoff mode, and that's exactly what we need this team to be. And they proven that Saturday night.
Absolutely. I mean, they saw that it was a win and in situation. They took the bull straight from the horns and pulled that bull down.
Mm-hmm.
Also, fan appreciation night. I thought the giveaways were pretty cool.
Yep.
During the game, like virtually no jersey raffles in 106, which I really don't know why. I think somebody above me won like a Corey Highfield jersey or something. I don't even remember.
Mm-hmm.
But that must have been pretty cool. But also congratulations to Tony Fela for winning the Fan of the Year. Dude is a
Yes,
absolute
sir.
machine. And it's been a long time coming for a guy like Tony as well, because he's been in charge of the whole Bandits Brigade thing and the all the parties at the watch parties at 290 Slide. He's the one that's in charge of setting the whole thing up. So yeah, well deserved. Congrats to Tony on his awesome accomplishment. It's been a long time coming.
Yeah, he's definitely been a fan for this team since day one. And you know what? Nothing could ever say congratulations to a man like Tony Fela. Tony Fela has been a fan since it started. And the way how he, gets people together and with all these gatherings, I've known that he's tried right down the street from his house at the local bars and said, hey, we'll bring in the computers, we'll bring in the laptops, we'll get them on the big screen as much as we possibly can before we even had the fact of the CW23 and for ESPN Plus. Tony Fela, well deserved, man. Congratulations yet again on being fan of the year of 2024.
Yeah, of course, it's been a long time coming. I would have figured he'd win it at least a few years ago, but sometimes things happen, votes go different ways. But congratulations to
Mhm.
Tony.
Yep.
that must have been sweet to go up there. And he was talking to me at the bar after the game, saying that like when Connor Farrell went in to shake his hand, like he almost damn near broke his hand because he shook it so hard, he was so amped up. But I don't know, it must have been so cool to be out there on the turf, surrounded by a bunch of players in their uniform in front of 19,000 fans. So that must
That's
have been
huge.
pretty sweet. But getting back to the game though,
Yep.
amazing start and just lights out defensively and lights out goaltending. 4-0 start is
Hmm.
nothing to scoff at whatsoever, especially when you're trying to get into a playoff spot.
Sure.
Calgary didn't score their first goal until 23 minutes into the game to
Yep.
make it a 6-1 or to make it a 5-1 game with
5-1. Yep.
Tyler Pace on the power play. So
Yep.
the Bandits were taking some penalties, but they had a lot of leeway, though, on that scoreboard where they can afford
Hmm.
maybe to give up a power play goal and it really wouldn't swing the momentum in any way, shape, or form. 23 minutes into the game without a goal. You're looking at almost halfway through the game. That speaks volumes on how locked down this team is defensively. And my God, one of my players to watch, 48, I said we need a lights out performance. That was his best game of this season so far. And granted, we only have one game left in the season, and it's coming up this Saturday. It's a late game
Yep.
against Las Vegas, but I'd rather you have an outstanding lights out performance in week 20 or week 21, whatever week we're in right now,
Hmm.
rather than week 1 and fizzle out. Matt Vince showed the naysayers, showed all the fans that were saying he's just not the same guy, including us from time to time. We were saying, you know what, he's still a good goalie, but he's just not the same as he was last year. He was sipping out of
Hmm.
the fountain of youth, and he had an outstanding game. Not just holding the team under 10 goals, but holding the Calgary Roughnecks under 8 goals. That's something that we haven't seen since the championship game, maybe game
Yep.
3,
Same
I
through.
want to say.
Yep.
But Matt
Yep.
Vince, dude, if he's going to be playing like this going into the playoffs, and the team is going to be getting into a rhythm going into the playoffs like this, I honestly couldn't give a crap where this team is going to be in the standings
Hmm.
because if they get hot, I don't see any team taking us down right now. They just got to keep it going, but it starts defensively and with goaltending.
Yeah, Matt Vince once again proven to all the haters that he still got it. And you know what? The GOAT of goaltending in the National Lacrosse League has proven it time and time again that he is the best in the game. So kudos to him after his injury coming back. It looked bleak at first, and we all thought, you know what, this was his final. This has got to be it. Final year playing. I went out as a champion before. At least I got 2 championships with 2 different teams. He's not thinking that right now. He is saying to himself, I want to win another one, and I want to win it again the very next year. And after that performance, going for 43 of 50, that's huge in the Bandits' eyes. And it's also huge for the fans of the Bandits to go, we still believe in you. We still want you to be our number one guy. And Matt Vince has proven it time and time again to all the haters that says, well, it's time to hang up the gloves. No, it's time for you to rub the crap off your eyes and go,
Yep,
that's my goaltender. How's that sound for you guys?
that's the guy. I mean, nobody else would have a performance. Nobody on this roster would have a goaltending
Crazy.
performance like that. I mean, we've tried plug and play with some of these other guys when Vince was hurt in the middle of the
Mm-hmm.
season. I mean, let's just be real. We can say whatever we want about Vince's performance overall this year, but none of those guys can hold a candle to what Matt Vince has done. Even in
That's right.
this year, the Vancouver game with Devlin Shanahan, I'm like, dude, if we had Vince in here, like I know he's coming off of a couple bad games, but it would be such a different outcome. I don't think it would have been as close as it would have been. He would have seen way more of the shots. Um, Matt Vince, this is the perfect time to heat up, and he's doing that exactly. And like you mentioned before, the secondary scores, it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't completely the Dane and Josh show. I
No.
said that Chase Fraser took this game over. Chris Cluche had a few goals. Steve Priolo, the way that whenever Calgary would score, and it was very, very few and far between the amount of goals that they scored in this game, but when they
Sure.
scored, the Bandits came right back down the field, won a faceoff led by the milkman Connor Farrell, and essentially went right back down the field and took that goal back. They say, "Oh, you scored? Oh, that's pretty cool. We're gonna go down and take that goal right back from you, so it evens out." And Calgary, their coaching staff was having a headache of who to throw into the net there in the second and third quarter. They took out Del Bianco. They're putting in the backup, and they took the backup out, and they put Del Bianco back in. It seemed like an ongoing shuffle thing. The Bandits had them in their feelings. The Bandits, oh my God, they had them. I don't even know how to describe it. They had them in a weird carousel of negative emotions, and it wasn't very good for the Calgary Roughnecks. A team, if I went into this game not knowing the standings, not knowing the legacy of or the lifetime stats and the championship banners from both of these teams, I would
Sure.
say that the Bandits are the team that are in ninth place on the outside looking in, hungry for a playoff spot. And Calgary is that team that's in fifth that's kind of like, oh, okay, like we don't really have anything much to play for here. Those roles are reversed. Calgary was on the outside looking in. If I'm a
Yep.
Roughnecks fan and I watch that game, whether it's on TV or if I came to Banditland and watched it,
Hmm.
I would be extremely frustrated with the coaching staff, extremely
Sure.
frustrated with the way the team played. They just flat out didn't show up. You wanted a shot at the playoffs, it was right there in the mecca of indoor lacrosse. It was right there in Banditland. And they folded. They rolled over in the fetal position while the Bandits players kicked them around. It wasn't even close. And that shows you the adversity of the Bandits, their lockdown mentality, and the difference between the Calgary Roughnecks, who there's a reason why they were on the outside looking in for the grand majority of the season. And there's a good reason why they're going to miss the playoffs. It's because the Bandits show up when the lights are the brightest. Calgary
Hmm.
apparently does not, at least for this year.
Yeah, Calgary's been struggling every time until they get the game's like close. Either it's a 1 goal game, 2 goal game. It's very close. This was a slap in the face and a stab in the back, basically, because usually Calgary does not play this bad,
No.
especially against Buffalo and with the history that we've gone through. Obviously losing to them in the title back then. That was pretty much of a cutthroat. But you know what? This team is completely different. The way the Bandits are defensively and goaltending wise, complete new outlook. And you know what? It's to me, it's championship material again. The way I see how they're playing, especially at the right time. But for Calgary's sake, and for Del Bianco and their backup Fryer to come in and out and not making up their minds about who's going to be their guy, who's going to be like the hero, and maybe turn it around and bring this team back and get it even close to being a competition again. But I have to thank the fans
Oh,
over in
yeah.
sections 117 through 123 to really get underneath the skins of both goaltenders that game. And boy, oh boy, did we pull through. They did not like it at all. They were trying to edge us on to keep on going. And believe me, we weren't stopping until they heard us. And believe me, they definitely heard Banditland edge them on, get them under their skin, and take them completely off their game. And believe me, folks, it's not just because of the Bandits scoring. It's all those fans that were definitely chanting those goaltending ways. And I'm telling you, it's going to happen if they come back to Banditland. Every goaltender better be, we got a whole list ready to go for any
Yep.
goaltender that comes to Buffalo. You better keep your head in the game. Otherwise, guess what? It's going to be night for anyone that crosses us.
And how could you not hear it, Tony? Like Calgary can tell us all they want, like, oh, we're not listening for that stuff, but how can you not hear that? I
You
mean, it was
can.
so loud. We saw people in the 300s moving their arms up and down, doing the whole thing, and trying to get everybody in our section in section 106 to do it. Like that's what you get when it's essentially a win and in game, which it was. You get 19,000 fans on a Saturday night. I didn't see
Mm-hmm.
one Calgary fan, at least when I was walking down the main concourse. I didn't run into one or see one.
Neither have
So
I.
essentially 19,000 plus Bandits fans.
Mm-hmm.
You can tell us all the time. It's louder than any Sabres game from this year. So you can tell us, oh, we're not listening for that stuff. We don't hear it. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. I think not trying to take any credit from the players here, but I think the Bandits fans, as loud as they are throughout the whole year, plus playoffs,
Mhm.
because they go to the playoffs every single year,
Sure do.
they act like the sixth or seventh man out there on the floor. So
That's right.
it's like, oh, if you want to beat the Bandits in Banditland, you got to first beat the players on the field, and then you got to shut the crowd up too.
Yeah,
It's
that's the
because
tough part.
those are two things off the mandatory checklist that not a lot of teams do in Banditland. Is they finished with a 6-3 home record, and hopefully going into this week, if everything goes to plan, Buffalo gets a big win and a couple other teams lose. We host a quarterfinal one and done, essentially an old MLB wildcard game winner takes all, loser goes home, or winner goes
Mm.
and advances to the next round. Hopefully, we can talk about that, but we can get more into that on the preview of the Las Vegas game. But I mean, this is the 26th time in franchise history the Bandits have
Mhm.
made the playoffs, and they've been around for
Huge.
35 years. I think something
Since
like that.
92.
I've read the stat on Twitter, so I'm paraphrasing, but it's something like that. The Bandits have
32.
only missed the playoffs. They've missed the playoffs less than 10 times. So
Yep.
you can count on two hands the amount of times the Bandits have missed the playoffs. The Bandits
Rare.
whenever things look bleak for the Bandits, and things did after that Panther City game, after the Vancouver game, things were looking really, really bleak for the Bandits. But there's a reason why this team has such a strong legacy in the National Lacrosse League, and they have 5 championship banners, and they consistently make a push at least to the Final Four, as we've seen in the last 3 years. They've been to the championship back-to-back times, and they were
Hmm.
there before COVID as well, and they were there in 2016. So
Yeah.
this team create and establishes a culture of winning, and it's up for these other teams to stop that. But sometimes I wonder, like, do the Bandit players' shoulders hurt from carrying the sports team's legacies and carrying the fans of Buffalo sports on their shoulders every single year? Because the Bills, they're regular season champions all the time,
Mhm.
but the lights get too bright for them. The Sabres, dude, they fired Don Granato this morning. That team is a complete mess. The Bandits, they're always contenders, but I've never been, because this is our third year covering this team.
Yep.
3 years they've been in the playoffs. Two of them they've been in the championship. We're still working on that third straight championship appearance and hopefully
For sure.
back-to-back title. But they've blessed us with fantastic content, Tony. Like they give us year in, year out great stuff to talk about them. I've never been more proud of this team.
Yeah, this team in orange and black have really been the outshine of the city of Buffalo, and the way how the fan base is starting to really grow, and hopefully more teams, more cities get involved and try to like take down the reigning champs. As right now, that's where we are. But other than that, I think the Bandits have really been the spark plug for the city and to really keep hope alive in the sports fan base. So again, what better team than the Buffalo Bandits lacrosse? And lacrosse is becoming a huge sport to watch, especially now. If I've heard people go to their first game this past Saturday, and boy, oh boy, they want to come back again because it's exciting, it's fun to watch, and it's nonstop action. And believe me when I say this, folks, is that if you come to your first game and it's a lacrosse game here in Buffalo, you want to come back for more. And believe me when I say this, is that we appreciate not only the players who take their time from their busy lives
From
that
their regular
work
nine to
that
fives, yep.
work their regular 9 to 5s, and they come out and they beat their bodies up in a sport that's very physical and a very skillful type game.
And
But
it probably
again,
doesn't pay as much as their regular job does, if I'm being
no,
real.
it doesn't. It's just like here's a little
Here's a little
bonus
bonus.
money for
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
That's it. And you know what?
Here's your
I'm
little
very
side
happy with it.
side niche, right? Here's your little side gig.
But man, I love this sport. I love this team
Dude,
so
this
much. It's
this team is
unbelievable.
great. The amount of times that we criticize them, it's only because we want what's best for them, and we
Hmm.
very rarely criticize them. It's it's
When we see
most
them play like crap, but
when we see,
yeah.
well, I think rightfully so. But people all the time say Buffalo has a legacy of failing sports teams. I'm like, you've never been to an indoor lacrosse game in your life,
Hmm.
because if
No.
you can't even say that without mentioning the if you say that and the Bandits are part of the conversation, you've never watched a Buffalo sport in your life. So, I mean, this team is fantastic. This game was the most complete game of the season. 14-7. Offense was clicking, defense was lights out. Paul Dawson had an amazing game defensively. That dude was all over the floor.
Yes, he
It's
was.
great to have our healthy guys back. All the Robinson boys are back, and it's
Hmm.
it's great to see Ian McKay flying up and down the floor, setting up passes. It's great not having to rely on Dane Smith to constantly score 5 goals like he did last year. Even though we won the
Yep.
championship last year, it kind of felt like Dane Smith was carrying the load for a lot of that season, mostly because it was the year where everybody got freaking injured in some way, shape, or form, except for Dane Smith. So he did carry those reins, but it felt good going into this game where
Mhm.
it's like, all right, Kluch can get 3, Chase could get 4. I mean,
Kyle had 2.
Kyle Buchanan with his amazing goals, he scores 2, and
Mhm.
your guys, I don't think it was a desperation trade from Steve Dietrich at all when he went and got Paul Dawson. I think he was just sick and tired of watching Albany and watching Panther City and watching Vancouver mow over this defense. So he's like, all right,
Yeah.
screw it. I'm going to use one of the second rounders that I acquired in the Brad McCauley trade, and I'm going to trade for big, uh, for a huge defenseman.
Mhm.
Even though he's in his 40s, he's played fantastic in the games he's been here. He got his feet wet a little bit in his first game, but Colorado game and the Calgary game, the dudes look like a machine. And Matt Vince. I mean, we already have 5 minute spiel about how Matt Vince played, but dude, the amount of times we were like, oh man, over the shoulder Vince is back this year. What are we gonna do? It feels like we were overdue to give him a huge thanks and a big compliment towards him. So once again, Matt Vince with a lights out game. The most complete win of the season. If I can wrap it
Yeah.
up in one sentence, the most complete win of the season. It couldn't have happened at a better time.
Yeah, especially during fan appreciation night, especially with having a sellout crowd, and especially, just being who they are. And this is what the team is: dangerous for everyone else to play against. And the way how the Bandits have been playing this whole year, yeah, rocky start, but just like you said with the Colorado Mammoth when they went 9-9 and they still made the championship. This is a much better team in my view
Oh
because
yeah,
look at
completely.
the way how they just collected themselves and said, "Hey, this is not us. Let's prove who we really are." And they went out and won 4 straight, and they still have one more game left that could possibly get them to third place in the standings and still have a home playoff game in the first round. I'll take that any given year. Good Lord. And especially a defending year. And that way we got to do. And I just feel like, you know what? I'm going to build up another ring. If they do another ring next year,
Put one on the other hand. Put it on the other hand.
by the way, kudos to Scott Loeffler for the rings this year, for all the
Yes.
fans, for the season ticket holders. Thank you. Great job on these, man. I could not be more impressed with this, and this was fantastic.
Those are
This ring
nice.
is legit. So again, for everyone contributing to the team, organization wise, fan base wise, the players themselves, this has been in a wild, epic year that we could possibly go back
It's been
for
a
a
roller
third
coaster.
straight time
Yep.
and go back to back possibly as champions. And you know what? I really hope they do because they deserve it because they're really known as the best in the game.
And they'd be the first team to go back to back since the
Mm-hmm.
early 2010s Rochester Nighthawks,
Mm-hmm.
led in goal by coincidentally Matt Vince. So
Matt Vince.
that would be very, very cool to see.
Yep.
Yeah, dude, the rings. I mean, I picked mine up on Friday. Like
I've got mine on now.
I was like, oh, this is cool. Comes in like its own little box. I tried it on. I'm like, this thing's freaking like this thing's a replica,
Yeah, it
but
fits right on my
it's
ring
heavy
finger.
and it
It's
feels like
perfect.
the authentic thing. I wore mine to the game on Saturday. It brought some good luck. 'Cause, man, the Bandits really smoked the Calgary Roughnecks. But God, what a great game. Hopefully, we can get a shot at another ring. I put out on Facebook and Bandits Mafia, we want
Mm-hmm.
6. I want that to spread like wildfire. Hashtag we want 6. Put it everywhere. If you're going to tweet about the Bandits, put that in your tweet. If you're going to put that on
Yep.
Facebook, put that on your Facebook because the main takeaway from this game is not the 14-7 score. It's the fact that
Mm-hmm.
this team clinched a playoff spot and gave
Yep.
themselves a legitimate shot at going back to back. And this Las Vegas game is only insurance. I don't get me wrong. I want to win that Vegas game too because I want a
Absolutely.
quarterfinal home playoff game here in Banditland because man, the fans pack that barn every single game, every single playoff game. So I'd love that. But this is a huge step into repeating. And like I said before, Tony, it was like what, middle of the season where we're like, screw talking about going back to back. I just want to make the playoffs. Or I just
Yeah.
want to look, I want this defense to look like watchable on TV. Like I don't know what's
Mm-hmm.
going on with these guys. Similar to last year, I think it was early April last year, they were in a tough skid where they couldn't score more than 10 goals a game, but they were still pulling out victories. And
Sure.
then it was right around this time last year where they went into Albany, smoked them, and went into
Mm-hmm.
the postseason and went 5-1 and won their 5th title. They're
Yeah.
doing, they're taking. stuff from the 2023 playbook, incorporating that into 2024. Hey, if it worked the first time and teams aren't picking up on it, you
Yeah.
don't have Calgary to worry about this year. You don't have Colorado to worry about this year in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
If it worked last year, hopefully it works again this year. And if you need to change some things up, you got the best coach in the game to help you
Yes, we
change
do.
things up.
Yeah, Johnny T has been really pushing these guys as much as they can go. And you know what? They're listening to him and look at the outcomes. They're finally waking up at the right moment. And again, defensively, biggest game of their year. Honest to God, I've never seen them go on lockdown as much as they have and given Matt Vince the opportunities to see the shots coming and making those key saves. And once again, we've had the injury bug before. I mean, obviously, we lost some players like Bryce Sweeting to a full season injury. We lost Spanger for a little bit. I don't know
Yep.
when he's coming back, but he looks like he's ready to go. I saw him sitting in the stands in 118, and he's itching to get back. But that's good to have those type of players come back. But right now, it's all about depth, and the depth right now with Bomberry stepping in
Yep.
finally after coming back. I don't know how many weeks back, but
Of at least
getting
probably
back
like
in the
half the
rhythm.
season, right? More than half the
Right. And
season.
Justin Robinson, after his injury,
And
coming back into the picture.
Paulie D getting traded here.
Paul Dawson was a huge asset to pick up, and he's stepping up being huge to be like Steve Priolo and the top 2-tier Kings to like, you got to have to push through these guys to get through our goaltender. It's not going to happen that easily.
Right.
Then you also got Justin Martin coming after his injury and stepping up and leaving where he left off, which has been top-notch defenseman. Again, everybody's contributing to this game, and that's when teams look at the Bandits and go, shit.
We got to play these boys again.
We got to play them now, especially when they're at their best.
I will tell you
That's tough to
this.
do.
Very, very tough. But I will tell you this.
Mhm.
Tony, I don't think there's a team in the National Lacrosse League right now that either wants to play the Bandits or
Nope.
the Vancouver Warriors in the playoffs.
I know. That's scary how good they came back.
I don't know. They are last year's Georgia Swarm that actually are in a playoff spot. If you remember, the Swarm started off 0-7. Then towards the end of the year, they won 7 straight. And
Yep.
they just missed the playoffs. And I was like,
Yes, they
that
did.
team might win the championship if they squeak into the playoffs. Like, that's crazy.
Mhm.
Vancouver's won 4 out of their last 5. They absolutely slaughtered. Who did they? I'm thinking maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago they played the Mammoth. They pounded the Mammoth, and they beat whoever they played this week. Brad McCulley had a sweep behind the back goal, just like a la Chase Fraser behind the back.
They beat the Riptide.
Yeah, the Riptide, which was huge for us, by the way.
Yep.
Because they were kind of gaining on us there too, but because they got that tiebreaker.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm telling you right now, Tony, Toronto can pound their chest that they're in first place. San
Sure.
Diego can pound their chest because they definitely earned it too. Albany, but I'd kind of be watching my back. That was my one concern about last year going into the playoffs. I'm like, oh, sweet, the Bandits are first overall in the league. Let's go. But all eyes are on the Bandits, and the most pressure is on the Bandits. If the Bandits get into maybe a 4th seed or 5th seed, they'll be that sneaky underdog team. And if Vancouver gets into that 7th or 8th seed, they'll be that sneaky team too. The one thing about this unified standing is there's no West, there's no East. It's the top 8 teams make it, and it's the most easy way to read the standings. You got to be just got to be in the top 8, and you make
That's
it.
it.
So I'm telling you right now, Tony, Toronto, Buffalo's got to be chomping at the bit to face against one of these teams that beat them in the regular season. Their likely opponent, I saw as we go into our last week, is the Georgia Swarm. We lost to them at home. But if you're the Bandits, you're looking at that. You're kind of salivating at the mouth going, I want a little revenge on those guys, and we'll do it on a grand stage of the playoffs. So there's no team, in my honest opinion. Playoffs are a different game. People will tell me Albany is a different team this year, and they are, and they swept us this season. So you got to give them credit there. But in the playoffs, everyone starts. It's a fresh season. Everybody's 0-0 again. So it's not going to be
game's a big one.
It's not going to be the same Albany team that you saw in week 14 and week 1. So it's going to be different, but I don't think there's one team as of right now. We got to keep this thing going into Las Vegas, but depending on how they do there's not one team that I'm really like, oh, I don't want to play them. It's not like last year's Mammoth or like last year's Roughnecks, like, oh, I don't want to play either of those guys going into the playoffs. But if I want to defend this thing, I want to face against the best. Give me the top team. We'll have the Bandits play the
Sure.
top team.
Yeah, that would be great to go up against Toronto or San Diego if all matters.
That'd
But
be
right
nice.
now, it matters where we are right at this point. Take a game at a time. We still have Vegas left. We have to win to possibly take third. If we don't and we end up 10-8, Panther City could still have a chance to win their last game and move up against us. So we may have to see either Albany the very first round or even Georgia the next round. Does it? It all depends on who does what. This last following week is very important. So if the Bandits win, their destiny lies when Albany has to play New York. So
Yep.
if New York beats them, if New York can beat Albany for us, especially at home, that would be huge for us. But we also would need Georgia to lose to Rochester. But again, Rochester didn't look like themselves against Toronto this past
No.
week. So again, you know what? I don't know where Rochester's going. And there's rumors about, and we're going to talk about this too also. There's rumors they may be moving to Grand Rapids, Minnesota.
Yeah.
Or Michigan. I'm sorry,
Michigan,
Grand
yeah.
Rapids, Michigan. I apologize.
And that,
Grand Rapids, Michigan. So
yeah.
do we see players from Rochester come back to Buffalo like
Connor
I
Fields.
consider Connor Fields?
Connor Fields. Yeah.
Connor Fields.
Maybe.
You never know. But again, one game at a time. We still have Vegas left, which is going to be Tucker Lymphoma night for them. That should be a very emotional game for both teams, especially with Sean Williams also obviously leading the way for the Las Vegas Desert Dogs, but also for us since it all started with us. So that right there is huge, and it's going to be a great game for both teams.
And we're going to get more in depth on it. As far as the playoff scenarios go, if I can wrap it up real quick, we'll get into it on the preview more in depth. But the Bandits can either finish in third or seventh. They can go as far as the 3 seed and finish as low as the 7 seed. So there's a huge implications this week. Just because the Bandits made the playoffs and clinched their spot doesn't mean you shouldn't be watching and scoreboard watching. There's still a lot of implications of the final standings going into this week. But Bandits 14-7, they're clinched. They win. They're in. CL-IN clinched. Yeah,
they're in.
I think that's what they put on the jumbotron. They put like clinched, but they emphasized the word in that word. So that was pretty cool. But 14-7, the narrative's put to bed. The Roughnecks no longer own the Bandits. The Mammoth no longer own the Bandits as we beat them in back-to-back weeks. By the way, going on our first 3-game winning streak of the season, which couldn't have come at a better time either. But 10-7 right now. The worst they can do is 10-8, and just like that, the Bandits have clinched another winning season. A lot of good things and a lot of good things going into next week. But I think, Tony, time to hit him with a sponsor.
All right. Well, before we do go to the sponsors, I wanted to say who your player of the game was for this night.
That's right. How can we forget? Oh,
How can we forget?
I pretty much praised him in the beginning of the show. You can't score ESPN SportsCenter top 10 goals at a high rate as much as this guy does, and not expect him to be the player of the game. Nicest goal of the season, in my honest opinion. We'll go at 95. Chase Fraser, 4-goal game.
Yeah, definitely well worth the ESPN moments, especially for 2 of them. And on top of it, special teams goal scorer, shorthanded or power play, you name it. He's been their go-to guy to find the back of the net, especially during special teams, and especially how the Bandits have gone 2 for 3 on the power play, I believe.
Yeah.
And most likely, you see Fraser's name on there. For what reasons? Why? He makes the special teams moments. And you know what?
Shorty. And he scored the shorty.
And the shorty. So kudos to Chase Fraser on an amazing 4-goal night, especially with the ESPN highlight goals that he did 2 of them. One obviously behind the back after the behind the back pass to Josh Byrne, and the one-hander top corner beating Del Bianco. Again, just ruthless goaltending or goal scoring. Let me change that.
Goal scoring. Yep.
And so, you know what? I was going to take Chase since you took him. I'd have to go with our defensive core, and that is basically Matt Vince himself.
Yeah.
Matt Vince has brought us back to the I'm like 20 years old again. And you know what? When he's on that, guys, when he's in lockdown mode and the wall's up and there's nothing that can get by this man, good grief. Teams are going to be like, what do we have to do to beat this goaltender? And the only way, and I wish this does not happen, if they take him out physically, but you know what? You got a defense up there that's a lot tougher, a lot stronger, and they're
Healthier.
not going to give you the opportunities. So Matt Vince is my go-to guy of the game to keep them from scoring more than 10.
Love it. 14-7 victory. Bandits clinch. Tony, now time for the sponsor.
All right. Guys, we'd like to thank our main sponsor, of course, is Mitchell's Tavern, located at 734 Sheridan Drive up in Tonawanda, New York, for the best beef wick in town. Guys, mention the boys of Banditland Boulevard, myself, Tony
Please.
LaMonica, over there, Trevor Hauer. Tell them that we are interested in trying your food and an amazing service. I'm guaranteeing you folks, you will not be disappointed. Also, we'd like to thank our very new sponsor, Hernie's Journeys. You want to plan something on a trip, on a cruise, or a getaway? This would be the place to start. Any information you guys want to know about Hernie's Journeys, please contact the owner and travel specialist, Suzanne Pike, at Suzanne@HerniesJourneys.com, or area code 716-868-6761. Let us plan your next adventure. Also, we'd like to thank those who are watching us, especially on YouTube. Please hit that like, subscribe, and notification bell to every time you hear about Buffalo Bandits lacrosse from the favorite two guys of Banditland Boulevard. Also, and finally, we'd like to thank Spotify.fm/Anchor. For those who listen in on every device known to man, give us that 5-star rating, and we will continue from here on about talking about Buffalo Bandits lacrosse for all of you Buffalo Bandits fans.
Well said. We're back in the playoffs. Guys, we're heating up at the right time.
Yes, we
We
are.
put the league
I'm
on
already
notice.
prepped.
10-7 record, you might be like, guys, like, what are we talking about? Just watch the games. This is a scary 10-7 team. Just like how the Mammoth last year were a scary 9-9 team that almost went all the way. Guys, I think we're a more complete team than they were. Just ride with it. This is a fun ride. It's not going to last forever either. The Bandits aren't going to be going on these championship playoff runs forever, even though they typically go to the playoffs, it seems like, every single year. It's not going to last forever. So you just got to enjoy the ride, live in the moment, just hope that and rally behind your boys, that they can go back-to-back for the first time since, 2012, 2013 with the Rochester Nighthawks. Let's freaking run this thing. Tony, we're going to the playoffs, but not after saying these 3 words. What are those 3 words, Tony?
Here we go. Let's go Bandits.
Let's go.
It's time.
Let's clinch. Another one. A home game this time. Let's do it.
Let's go, guys.